We did not create so much without a means to catalog it all. This was meant for my husband to help your people. And his meditation was complete.
Time was your ally, human. But now it has abandoned you. The Forerunners have returned.
The Forerunner, Latin name Primoris Progenitus, or Firstborn, created a civilization that was a testament to the apex of technological and sociological evolution. Distributed across numerous worlds, they were not only a dominant force due to their advanced tech, but also due to their intricate understanding and profound philosophy of the universe. Their belief system was built on the foundation of the Mantle, a responsibility and right to safeguard all life and ensure the progression of the living time.
The humans were not meant to protect others. The mantle of responsibility for all things is ours, and ours alone.
Yes, the mantle is ours. And we hold it so tight that even in death we shall hold it still.
This duty, as the Forerunners perceived it, was passed down to them from the Precursors, a testament to the Forerunners' reverence and recognition of those that came before them. But if you want to know how the Precursors understood that, make sure to check out their video. The name Forerunner isn't just an arbitrary designation, it's deeply symbolic, representing their self-awareness and the impermanence of their reign in the universe. They perceived their role not as eternal stewards, but as temporal guardians who, in due course, would pass on their legacy to another deserving civilization. And when the time came, they deemed humanity worthy of this honor. To humans, they endowed the title of Reclaimer.
Reclaimer. When I indexed mankind for repopulation, I hid seeds from the Didact. Seeds which would lead to an eventuality.
Indicating humanity's role in reclaiming the mantle and the responsibilities it bore. And while the Forerunners were aware of their transient place in the universe, their impact was long-lasting. The remnants of their grand civilization, scattered throughout our galaxy, became an object of veneration by the Covenant. This alien coalition defied the Forerunners, interpreting their relics as sacred and divine. To the Covenant, the Forerunner artifacts weren't mere tools or remnants of an ancient civilization, but were holy objects, revered as the works of gods. This reverence was so deeply ingrained in the Covenant's culture that they considered any act defiling these relics as the highest form of blasphemy.
When you first saw Halo, were you blinded by its majesty?
And those who committed such acts were branded heretics. The Forerunner's legacy, therefore, shaped not only the progression of humanity, but also the beliefs and actions of other civilizations for millennia to come. As we begin their story, let's start with their biology. Among the other species spread through the stars, the Forerunners stood out as two-legged titans, eerily echoing human form, yet with a more commanding presence. Ranging from 6 feet 6 inches to 13 feet 7 inches, with weights that could range from 243 to 900 pounds. This is all based on the form or class that they took, which we'll break down in a bit, but know that throughout their lifetimes they embraced orchestrated transformations, reconfiguring their physiques to align with their occupational roles. Their looks weren't merely a matter of biology, but influenced by family history, the long march of time, and their own individual preferences. The reliance on advanced body assist armor wasn't just about defense. This marvel of technology not only shielded them, but also enriched their mental and physical capacities. One of its crowning features was the promise of an almost endless lifespan, thanks to its unwavering life support and medical devices built in, fighting off the effects of aging as long as you wore the suit. In their primeval stage, known as manipulars, these beings stretched tall and lean, adorned with patches of delicate fur and hues of lilac pink or alabaster, which graced the apex of their heads, down along the neck, shoulders, and the backs of their hands. Their face bore an uncanny resemblance to humans, along with similar human expressions. Yet as they advanced through their transformative journey, their facial muscles tensed, reducing their expressive range. And culturally, overt displays of emotion, even a simple smile or chuckle from some of their evolved forms, was seen as uncivilized. What's distinct from humans is that their facial topography lacked prominent noses or ears, replaced by narrow nostril slits and bulb-like extensions. However, their cranium was similar to ours, bearing some deviations, and even their genetic makeup bore striking parallels to human DNA. Although direct genetic ties were yet to be confirmed, some now obsolete Forerunner research divisions posited that humans might indeed share a genetic blueprint reminiscent of the Forerunners. And of course we know that the Precursor accounts do confirm this, as they were the ones that seeded life throughout our Milky Way galaxy.
You are Forerunner. But this ring is mine.
They also share sexual dimorphism, with the females generally appearing more delicate and slightly shorter than their male counterparts, with the largest males being between 3 to 4 meters, like the Didact who towered at 3.5 meters, while Born Stellar's influencer builder father reached a staggering 4 meters. Comparatively, Born Stellar's mother, a builder of equal rank, was slightly above 2 meters, and the Librarian, the leader figure of the Lifeworker rate, stood close to 3 meters. Interestingly, as they evolved, male Forerunners began to deviate from human-like features more than females, who still do retain a more humanoid face. Much of the variation was meticulously crafted through their process of mutation, and was closely tied to their rate. As they evolved, their skin could take on even more colors, shades of gray to black and blues, keeping some of those pinks and sometimes a blended palette. While the Forerunners' hands were also a testament to their unique evolution, with 6 fingers, including 2 opposable thumbs. There were even those among the Lifeworkers who flaunted an astonishing 7 fingers. Strangely, the Librarian still has 5 fingers on each hand. And they truly did perfect the art of age defiance. The superior medical and life support technologies enabled them to preserve their youthful vigor for millennia if they wished. Although the state-of-the-art armor could miraculously heal grave injuries, even deadly radiation exposure, there were exceptions. Some, like the storied warrior servant known as Bitterness of the Vanquished, chose to forsake basic remedies, and despite her blindness, she leaned on her armor's technology to perceive the world around her. Perhaps the greatest technological feat here is that the armor defeated sleep. While in an armored suit, they could have uninterrupted consciousness, but the dream realm seems to not be completely dominated even by these advanced species, as even with this suit, if you tried to push it for too long, there were rare occasions where they'd be visited by vivid, waking visions, sleep-deprived hallucinations, which made it so that most Forerunners would still choose to sleep, mostly in meditation sessions, or during lengthy cosmic voyages, which even here were still a rarity given their swift splipspace technology. As you'd expect, the cognitive prowess of the Forerunners was nothing short of remarkable, particularly in their advanced forms which easily eclipsed human capabilities. Their personal armor wasn't just a shield or an aesthetic statement, but it augmented their neural faculties. Not just registering sensory details and recalling memories, but it maintained a continuous backup of the wearer's consciousness, like a cloud storage for one's personality, arguably one's mind and soul. And on top of this, the armor empowered Forerunners with a sort of telepathic connectivity. They could perform direct transfers of information, which they termed silent conversations, communing without saying a word. And those in leadership positions often wielded impressive multitasking ability, having conversations in the minds of many at one time. Consider a warrior servant leader who could, with almost godlike overview, simultaneously sift through the sensory inputs from thousands of their followers, all while orchestrating vast battles and perceiving reality through multiple, distinct perspectives, each operating with its own temporal wavelength. The Ancilla, another marvel of their tech arsenal, acted as an external memory aid. With its help, Forerunners could delve into their past and retrieve any event with laser-sharp precision. But even stripped of their armor and without the aid of an Ancilla, their recall was astounding, which we saw with the Didact. After a millennia had passed, he could effortlessly recite a jumbled sequence made up of hundreds of words and numbers. It was not just a testament to their tech, but a constant refining of their mental power. The momentous chapter in a young Manipular's life was when they transitioned to a specialized role within their societal hierarchy. This is not just a mere ceremonial progression. Instead, they experienced a profound, intangible transformation, molding their bodies to best fit their chosen path. Known as mutations, they weren't instantaneous. They unfolded gradually, reshaping everything from their bones, brains, and organs. They might go through this process several times, and there were expectations for those who remained unaltered. As you might expect, those like warrior servants would be enhanced with strength and resilience, while others in the ruling class might have increased brain matter. The most important part of this mutation is not just the physical augmentation, but it opened them up to the vast universe of knowledge known as the Domain. This ethereal archive held the cumulative wisdom and experiences of their civilization. Just like their suits could capture their consciousness, these were the records of countless first-person experiences, stored not just like text or video, but the full metaphysical first-person experience of those in their entire civilization were stored in the Domain. Now, there were rare times where they would have to have urgent transformations, known as brevet mutations, which was not the typical gradual process, but a rapid, intense metamorphosis compressed into just a few minutes or hours. And these were not without their complications. The physical and emotional toll on a Manipular was high, and the pain was often excruciating. Whispers persisted throughout their ecumene of unfortunate manipulars, whose brevet mutations did not go as planned. In a society where you can live indefinitely, these horrifying and rare cases of death were one of the only things Forerunners truly feared, while others were stuck in irreversible, deformed bodies. These tragic souls were said to be ushered away, tucked into secluded enclaves, far from the public's curious gaze. One of the most notorious uses of a brevet mutation involved the formidable Didact. He subjected Born Stellar Makes Eternal Lasting to this hurried mutation, not for mere advancement, but with a deeper purpose, to bridge him to the expansive and enlightening universe of the domain. Now we can turn to their culture. Anchoring their entire civilization, the Forerunners embraced the Mantle of Responsibility, a creed which declared them as protectors for all life. Common sentiment held that this colossal responsibility was bequeathed to them by the enigmatic Precursors before they receded into the shadows of time. Again, that's the Forerunner telling of their own history. But with this elevated sense of purpose, there intrinsically came a sense of isolation, positioning themselves on a pedestal above all other civilizations. With vigilant eyes, the Forerunners scanned the galaxy, guiding the trajectories of budding species. Their interventions ensured that the burgeoning civilizations tread paths of serenity and harmony. But over time, beneath this facade of universal caretakers became the desire to remain on top. The measures they took were often drastic, transplanting species for territorial expansion or to take their resources, and even actively curbing the rise of potential rivals. As we'll see in a chilling testament of their resolve, they reduced the burgeoning human populations to mere pockets of existence. Species that bowed to the Forerunner hegemony found themselves enmeshed in the ecumene, the Forerunner name for their vast interstellar political order. While they were partners, their roles were defined, allies, but always in the looming shadow of Forerunner supremacy. Some even found themselves compelled to extinguish remnants of human defiance post the tumultuous Human-Forerunner War. Basking in an almost utopian state, the Forerunners existed in remarkable harmony. Although they weren't immune to political disagreements, the specter of war amongst them was a distant memory, with the scars of their last internal battles fading from consciousness, being half a millennium before their final demise. The warrior servants, the enforcers of Forerunner might, found themselves in a societal paradox, entrusted with military tasks while being actively shunned by the loftier classes. This disdain stemmed from a perception that their very existence and duties ran counter to the Forerunners' overarching mission of safeguarding life. Yet the warrior servants were not just warmongers. They too were believers, and in their view, any challenge to Forerunner authority was an affront to the mantle they held dear. Thus, when pushed to conflict, the retaliation was swift, relentless, and absolute, quickly killing off the warriors of a lower species, knowing that a short war would see the least amount of bloodshed, and ensure that the most technologically advanced and enlightened species, the Forerunners, could still protect all other life throughout the galaxy. And this profession-based caste system persisted untouched across eons. With a social framework as firm as steel, the Forerunners' place was largely dictated by the profession caste or rate. These rates dictated their roles and responsibilities, each with cultural nuances and rituals varying across these rates, but a thread of formality ran strong, especially among the builders, who stood at the very top of this hierarchical pyramid. Heritage was revered, and tradition was not just respected, but the closest thing to religious. In this vast ocean of the cosmos, one's lineage was their only anchor, with rate and social status passed down like a treasured heirloom, and it was thus considered near heretical to swim against this tide. Changing the family job was like changing the family's religion. An emblematic example was growth through trial of change. Born amidst the opulence of the builder lineage, her choice to embrace the Lifeworker path led to her being viewed as a societal pariah by all of her friends and family. The only thing more sanctified than your rate was the domain itself, seeing it not just a fountain of wisdom, but also a transcendental realm that souls might access after death. Yet for all its ubiquity in their lives, the true essence of the domain remained an enigma. The only ones who came close to unraveling its mysteries were the Harspices, an almost monastic order devoted entirely to plumbing the depths of the domain. The twist, however, was that this vast reservoir of knowledge and memories, so central to the Forerunners, was a creation of the Precursors. Built upon the intricate framework of neural physics, the domain met its tragic end when the Halo arrays were activated. This cataclysmic event washed away eons of Forerunner history, wisdom, and heritage, leaving behind nothing but an echoing void. And despite all this high tech, they maintained a poetic symmetry with the natural rhythms of the universe. Even though sleep was rendered obsolete by their personal armor, they still recognized the profound tranquility of rest and introspection. Like the calming ebb and flow of a planet's day-night cycle, Forerunner households across their vast empire would embrace moments of solitude and meditation. In stately builder homes, this was an inviolable ritual, a cosmic pause where even the rapid calculations of ancillas would hush. The relationship with the universe manifested in dietary choices as well. Forerunners refrained from consuming meat, honoring a scriptural edict within the Mantle that spoke against the, quote, eating of the flesh of unfortunates. Furthermore, self-harm, or removing yourself from the pool of living beings, was viewed with grave disdain, one of the highest ways to reject the mantle of responsibility. For a culture steeped in tradition and conservatism, their views on nudity and sexuality were surprisingly free. Shedding one's clothes during significant rituals, such as the mutation rite, was neither scandalous nor overtly sensual. It was simply a natural act within the context of their culture. Yet even among this advanced civilization, there existed outliers who chose simplicity over sophistication. Forgoing the dazzling allure of Forerunner tech and their personal armor, these individuals sought solace in an unadorned rustic life. One such commune of ascetics settled on the planet Seaward, which would tragically go down in history as the Flood's inaugural conquest and its assault against the Forerunner ecumene. The Ecumene Council was the pillar of Forerunner governance, orchestrating their harmonious function of their vast empire from the bustling heart of their capital. Though comprised of members hailing from diverse rates, the collective mission of the Council was to uphold the mantle of responsibility and ensure the welfare of the entire ecumene. The authority vested in the Council was immense, but they were not alone in this task. An intricate web of ancillas, known as the Council Metarchy, streamlined administrative processes and ensured swift, efficient decision-making. Counselors, despite their elevated status and significant responsibilities, were known for their austerity. Their tenure, spanning a millennium, wasn't a journey of opulence but one of dedication and service. Their lives, seemingly contradicting their power and influence, mirrored simplicity and discipline, reflecting the Forerunner ethos of duty above self-indulgence. And should matters of legality arise, the Capital Court stood as a beacon of justice within the ecumene. It was a revered institution, diligently intercepting and enforcing the laws crafted by the Ecumene Council. But in dire times, when the fabric of civilization itself faced unprecedented challenges, the Capital Court could be transformed into the Supreme Mantle Court. This transformation wasn't just symbolic, but brought forth a concentration of legal might and authority to tackle threats to the very essence of the Mantle and the Forerunner way of life. The stratification of Forerunner society by rates was not merely an indicator of occupation, but also a manifestation of their psychology, physiology, history, and culture. While on the surface, rates seemed to segregate the Forerunner population, they were in essence interdependent cogs in a vast machinery of the ecumene, each indispensable to the whole. And each rate often had many guilds. Guilds were organizations within each rate that specialized in specific subsets of a rate's overall purpose. For example, within the Builder rate, there might be guilds dedicated to different aspects of megastructure construction, one for designing habitats, another for creating transportation networks, and yet another for the development of sustainable ecosystems. Each guild often had their own hierarchies, traditions, and even their own unique mutations to better suit their niche roles. Maniples functioned as the smallest organizational units, somewhat akin to families or clans. They were often bound together not just by shared work, but also by shared experiences, values, and histories. Each manipular, an inexperienced and young Forerunner, would traditionally start within a maniple, learning from their elders and undergoing mutations to better fit into their chosen rate. The 7 rates were Builders, Miners, Lifeworkers, Juridicals, Warrior Servants, Engineers, and Theoreticals. Though the Theoreticals would be forcibly merged with the Builders in their distant history, all for refusing to cease their investigation into the Forerunner's past, specifically a star in the Spider Nebula of the Path-Cathana galaxy, which was crucial to understanding the fall of the Precursors. And underpinning the immense grandeur of the Forerunner civilization, the Builders held an almost unparalleled influence over the societal and technological evolution of the ecumene. And this came to shape their psychology, seeing themselves as having the ultimate stewardship of the Forerunners. Their influence extended beyond their capability to construct, delving deep into the stewardship of the Forerunners' historical and technological narratives. Their fascination with ancient Forerunner tech wasn't merely an admiration for the past, but a quest for reattainment, an almost nostalgic yearning for the past that they believed to have more advanced tech than they currently held. By looking to these lost epochs, Builders hoped to resurrect technologies that would further solidify their central position in the ecumene. Their combination of unparalleled wealth, political machinations, and control over the narrative of neural physics technology presented a powerful dynamic where they could mold perceptions and set dogmas that others within the ecumene simply had to accept. The creation of builder security served as a testament to their ever-growing reach beyond mere construction. The integration of former warrior servants into this organization does highlight the shifting power dynamics toward the later years of the Ecumene, especially in the shadow of the Didact's exile. But one of the ways the builders would show off their status was in their opulent armor. Not just a display of wealth, but a symbol of their exalted status. Every facet of their attire was a testament to their skill, power, and the high regard in which they held themselves. And with their unmatched influence came the vices that come with unchecked power. Faber's rise showcased the dangers of concentrating too much power in too few hands. His reign marked a time when the builders succumbed to political intrigue, corruption, and tyranny, sowing seeds of discord throughout the Ecumene. In many ways, the builders embodied the grandeur and contradictions of the Forerunner civilization. They were unparalleled in their achievements, yet flawed in their ambitions. They were guardians of history, yet at times, they manipulated these narratives, positioning themselves as the protectors of the Mantle, while often becoming its biggest violators. While the exact opposite could be said for the miners. Like the name suggests, they dealt with the raw materials that built up this empire, manipulating everything from rocks to the plasma of stars. Unlike many of the rates, miners were celebrated for their no-nonsense, direct manner of speech, reflecting their hands-on nature and preference for planetary environments. Their responsibilities, however, extended far beyond simple excavation. With the capability to form or annihilate planets or even tinker with the stars, their impact on the universe was profound. Among their achievements, they could melt asteroid fields to forge new planets in less than 10,000 years, and completely encapsulate and harness the energy directly from stars. This vast power was evident in the Minor Orbital Reformer installation on X-50, a satellite capable of unraveling the planet Dratheus 5 in mere hours. But their influence wasn't just raw and destructive. They achieved wondrous feats in both construction and scientific research. Together, they explored the complexities of splipspace, attempted the growth of new splipspace cores from precursor remnants, and even endeavored to produce stars on a massive scale. While their practical and straightforward nature made them apolitical, there was no underestimating the foundation they provided to the Forerunner civilization. Without miners, the majestic Forerunner constructs and starships would be nothing but dreams. They truly were the backbone of creation, including potentially lost knowledge of the precursors and the true Forerunner history to themselves. This rate had long been fascinated by the ancient precursors, hoping to uncover their vast wisdom. Under the guidance of their elders, young miners journeyed through the cosmos, seeking planets and stellar bodies that held the echoes of the precursors. These celestial bodies were carefully and secretly analyzed in a dedicated world engine, and though the details of their findings remain elusive, the weight of their discoveries was felt across the Ecumene. And interestingly, the miners had marked their presence in the Sol system. Mars, or Edom as it was known then, became a place of exile for born stellar makes eternal lasting. The young builder, a representative of one of the wealthiest families in the Ecumene, was sent there as a form of punishment, where he lived and worked alongside a miner family, giving him a first-hand experience of the challenges and triumphs of the miner's world. Lifeworkers held a unique role, focusing on the study, preservation, and experimentation of various forms of life. While their purpose seemed to align directly with the central tenets of the Mantle, the Forerunners' intrinsic duty to safeguard all life, Lifeworkers paradoxically occupied a relatively low tier in the social hierarchy. They were positioned above the warrior servants, but below the miners. Among the Lifeworkers, the Life Shaper was considered the most prestigious role, and the Librarian, recognized as the most influential Lifeworker, was a true embodiment of this title, wielding unparalleled influence and authority within her rate. A significant portion of the Lifeworkers' responsibilities included the meticulous crafting and upkeep of the ecosystems within Installation 00 and the Halo Array. This initiative was part of a grander scheme, a pact between the Librarian and Faber, the Master Builder. Their shared vision was to devise a backup plan for various sentient species should the Halo Rings ever be activated. A project under the aegis of the Lifeworkers, focused on the preservation, indexing, and study of species from myriad worlds across the galaxy. In the aftermath of the human Forerunner Wars, Earth, then known as Erde Tyrene, was designated as a controlled environment. For nearly 9 millennia, the planet was under the vigilant watch of the Librarian. Here she undertook efforts to ensure the recovery of humanity after their societal degradation. The Librarian also implemented a Gaius within them, thereby preparing the human race for their forthcoming role as the Reclaimers.
You are the culmination of 1,000 lifetimes of planning.
Physiologically, Lifeworkers were distinguished by their tall and elegant forms, setting them apart from the other Forerunner rates. The specialized armor donned by Lifeworkers accentuated this elegance, even enabling some of them to levitate rather than walk, as evidenced by the librarian and her associates during her time on the Omega Halo. Those Lifeworkers who reached the zenith of their careers earned the title Archmedicus, a recognition of their seniority and expertise, and they often utilized a unique variant of the Huragok. Unlike a typical Huragok, which centered around machinery, these were adept in understanding and tending to organic beings and medicine. The Juridicals were an integral rate within the Forerunner society, serving as the legal guardians and investigators of the Ecumene. Tasked with maintaining law and order, they worked to prevent and investigate crime, operating under the leadership of the Master Juridical. A really strange aspect of their method was the use of the Catalog, a collective of evidence-collecting agents who, despite being a large team of individuals, were perceived as a singular entity. This perception was further reinforced by the Juridical Network, an expansive system that interconnected the entirety of the Ecumene. This network not only facilitated swift communication among catalog units and other Juridicals, but also played a pivotal role in the dissemination and pooling of information. In their pursuit of justice and truth, Juridicals frequently turned to the Domain, a vast, esoteric repository of knowledge, using it to store and examine pertinent case materials. To delve deeper into the Domain and retrieve specific pieces of info, they often employed the services of the Haruspice. This relationship with the Domain generally positioned the Juridicals as conservatives in their outlook. An interesting observation made by Catalog was the tendency for Juridicals to grow increasingly cynical and detached as they aged. This disillusionment led many senior Catalog units to opt for roles that demanded minimal interaction with other Forerunner rates. However, even some Juridicals would turn to a life of crime. During the reign of the Old Council, many were swayed by the influence of Master Builder Faber, and there were some that held a rather controversial perspective regarding the looming threat of the Flood. They opined that even if individuals were assimilated by the Flood, their memories and essence would persist within the grave mines. Thus, as long as the foundational knowledge of a civilization endured, its essence would continue to flourish, albeit within the Flood's collective consciousness. And they got a chance to prove that theory. Around 97,445 BCE, several Juridicals fell into the hands of the Flood. This allowed the Flood to tap into the vast Juridical network and unleash the Logic Plague, a form of mental corruption upon Catalog and Ancilla's. Faced with this unprecedented breach, the Foreigners made the momentous decision to deactivate the Juridical network, indefinitely halting all Forerunner legal operations. The Forerunners, while often projecting an image of peaceful guardianship, had a robust military force, represented by the warrior servants. When it came to warfare, the warrior servants had at their disposal an array of specialized combat suits known as combat skins. A typical example of such a suit is the War Sphinx, designed for medium-scale engagements. These armors had a remarkable capacity to adapt against enemy weapons, making them exceptionally resilient to repeated attacks, even from powerful Forerunner armaments. The might of the Forerunner military was also evident in their formidable fleets, with warrior servants commanding ships ranging from fortress-class vessels and dreadnoughts to planet-breaking behemoths and nimble picket cruisers. Their tactical efficiency was further enhanced by their use of monitors, sentinels, and the advanced artificial intelligence systems called ancillas, embedded within their armor and ships. During vast fleet operations, some warriors held the staggering responsibility of controlling millions of automated weapon ships. Their forces were meticulously structured, with legions housing multiple attack squadrons. The physical form of the warrior servants was tailored for combat efficacy. Their bodies were sturdier and more muscular compared to other Forerunner rates, ensuring optimal performance in the theater of war. While modern warfare often negated the need for hand-to-hand combat, these warriors still possessed formidable physical prowess. High-ranking warrior commanders had cognitive enhancements that allowed them to simultaneously perceive multiple realities, each with its unique time flow. This capability was further enriched by the ability to share sensory data amongst fellow warriors. Warrior servants also had distinct post-mortem protocols. Their battle suits were programmed to preserve the last memories of its deceased wearer for future analysis. A further testament to their dedication was their practice of extracting the memory impressions of their fallen adversaries. But there were exceptions. Warriors in some instances believed in granting a swift end to opponents they considered honorable, without extracting their memories. Lastly, communication amongst the warrior servants was nuanced. They had developed a set of hand signals that held specific meanings. For instance, a half-turned raised hand meant acknowledgement of a command. Marking a Y on one's forehead symbolized acknowledgement of shame, while a touch to the sixth finger on the left hand was a gesture of vengeful sympathy. There are not many reports existing on the engineer rate, except the fascinating statements that they utilized specialized carapaces in their daily life that could only be described as mobile cathedrals, awe-inspiring, ornate, and technically complex engineering marvels that showcase the unique and invaluable skills this rate brought to the ecumene. Marriage rituals and practices within the Forerunner society were intricate and varied, with different rates displaying unique traditions and values, while the more grassroots rates, such as miners or engineers, often wedded out of sheer affection, love, or personal compatibility. The more elite strata held more multifaceted motivations. Builder marriages, for instance, frequently intertwined with political maneuvers, consolidations of power, or the bolstering of familial standing within the rate hierarchy. However, despite these distinctions and layers of complexity, love still played a role in cross-rate unions. A prime example is the marriage of the Didact, who hailed from the warrior servants, to the librarian, a renowned Lifeworker. Such inter-rate relations indicated a level of fluidity and openness within the Forerunner society, even if the romantic pursuit was more of an exception than the norm. Interestingly, though specific rituals and the nature of commitment might differ, the concept of romantic connection and partnership wasn't exclusive to one-on-one unions. Polygamy was not only tolerated, but even customary among the higher echelons. Faber, the master builder, for instance, was known to have multiple wives, highlighting that marital practices and their acceptability were as much about social position as personal preference. Fertility and procreation also held particular significance. The millennial interim was a distinctive period in a female Forerunner's life. This hiatus from childbearing, a designated time when females abstained from giving birth, was possibly rooted in societal, biological, or even spiritual reasons. This practice suggests a deeply entrenched respect for the life cycle and the notion of renewal within Forerunner culture, indicating their value on the pacing and rhythm of life in conjunction with the societal needs and responsibilities. The Forerunners, a highly advanced civilization, left behind intricate symbols and writing that permeate various locations they once inhabited. These unique glyphs, often circular and complex in design, are evident in regions on Earth and even as far-reaching as the halos. Specific symbols such as the Mantle and Reclaimer, and the individual emblems of certain Forerunners stand out among the rest. Curiously, many of these symbols exert a captivating, if not slightly disorienting effect on human observers. Their communication was facilitated by diverse languages. While the ancient Dagon dialect was the preferred choice among the Prometheans, the builders leaned more towards the somewhat younger Jagon language. In addition to their spoken dialects, Forerunners had a unique script featuring geometric characters, including dots, squares, lines, and triangles. A testament to the Forerunners' influence is evident in the way the Covenant incorporated their designs. Not only did they adapt the Forerunner glyphs, embellishing them on their weaponry like the energy sword and their Sangheili battle attire, but they also drew inspiration from the original Forerunner alphabet. The Covenant's writing system, while inspired, showcases ornate variations on the primary geometric designs intrinsic to the Forerunners. Within the intricate culture of the Forerunners, names carried substantial weight and often depicted specific qualities or attributes. These appellations were frequently constructed using a combination of words that painted an image of grandeur or poetic essence. Such names often bore a connection to the profession or rate a Forerunner was born into, a practice that can be observed in names like Born Stellar Makes Eternal Lasting, which alludes to his builder heritage. However, in informal discourse, these extended names were often abbreviated, with speakers typically using a fragment of the full name, like just calling him Born Stellar. Notably, many of the older and higher-ranking Forerunners were recognized not by their birth names, but by the titles they assumed later in life. These monikers often evolved from nicknames attributed to specific characteristics or actions of the individual. A case in point is the Didact, originally named Shadow of Sundered Star. The title Didact was an honorific, bestowed upon him by his pupils during his tenure at the War College. The younger generation of Forerunners, known as Manipulars, had the identifier Form 0 appended to their full names. In the event of a Forerunner's death, either due to unforeseen accidents or the rare occurrences of wartime casualties, A series of intricate rites and ceremonies were observed prior to consigning the remains to the fusion fires, symbolic of their respective rates, such as a melting torch or a planet cutter. The initial step involved extracting the deceased's most recent memories, preserved within their armor, capturing a brief window into the final hours of their consciousness. This snapshot of their persona was then stored in a durance, a time-sealed container designed to preserve this essence for over 1 million years. Following this extraction, the deceased's physical remains would undergo a ceremonial immolation, witnessed solely by intimate family members. A fragment of the resulting plasma was then safeguarded by the designated Master of the Mantle, who would also be responsible for the preservation of the encapsulated essence in the durance. Subsequently, the durance, now containing both the plasma and the preserved consciousness, would be entrusted to the immediate family of the departed Forerunner. They bore the solemn duty of ensuring its protection and preventing any misuse. Both the family and rate held these durances in profound reverence, and any act of interference or violation was perceived as a profound desecration of their cherished traditions and values. Even in the realm of interstellar travel, the Forerunners adhered to a set of long-standing customs. When a family from the Builder caste was on the brink of concluding an extensive voyage through space, a customary practice was observed. The entire family would congregate on the ship's bridge deck, fixating on the nearest destination. Directing this event was the most senior member of the family, who would ceremonially vocalize commands in the ancient language of Jagun. However, this ritual was symbolic in nature, given that the majority of Forerunner vessels were actually steered by an Ancilla, or AI. After the completion of a splipspace jump, an official ceremony was carried out, particularly among the elite echelons of Forerunner society, like counselors. This ritual saw them extend formal commendations to the ship's Ancilla for its service. As a reciprocal gesture, these distinguished Forerunners would receive a small disc of gold, which represented an account of the particle reconciliation expense for that specific transit. Amid extended voyages across the vast expanse of space, Forerunners, to mitigate the monotony, engaged in diverting games. Accessible through their armor's interface, these games served as a pastime to make the long stretches of travel more bearable. Technology. The Forerunners were unparalleled architects of technology in the known cosmos. The only thing that even came close was ancient humanity and the Sanshum before these factions were defeated in the Human-Forerunner Wars. Beyond them, only the transcendent, multidimensional entities, the Precursors, were believed to outstrip the Forerunners in terms of technological prowess. Among the marvels the Forerunners conceived was the ability to transform light into tangible surfaces using hard light technology. They deftly harnessed splipspace for near instantaneous teleportation and birthed a myriad of avant-garde machinery. Their capacity to artificially induce the collapse of stars and to craft entire planets in a span as short as 10,000 years stood as a testament to their might and intelligence. However, their magnum opus in technological innovation arguably lies in the Halo Array and the Shield Worlds. These structures not only represented their unmatched talent in large-scale engineering, but also showcased their profound understanding of splipspace intricacies. Specifically, the planet Onyx, along with its internal Dyson sphere, Shield World 006, epitomized these attributes. The test of time has proven the resilience of Forerunner constructs, many of which have remained virtually undeterred for over 100,000 years. Despite spanning millions of years, the Forerunners' technological growth was anything but stagnant. They consistently experienced rapid innovations, making remarkable progress within spans as short as 1,000 years. Some builders hypothesize that the Forerunners had once achieved even loftier technological pinnacles in their ancient history, only to undergo periods of regression where such knowledge was lost. This belief was not without merit. Evidence for this includes the discovery of Forerunner probability mirrors, devices capable of extensive space-time reconciliation that dated back 10 million years, as well as cloak technologies from a similar era which could hide an entire star system within the Large Magellanic Cloud. In their arsenal of technological marvels, the Forerunners also had a diverse range of artificial intelligence constructs, which they referred to as Ancillas. These varied in complexity and purpose, from rudimentary AI companions integrated into their suits, to robotic entities like the Monitors, and escalating to the potent Medarch-level AIs. Among these, the Contender class stood out as the epitome of Forerunner AI sophistication. The Forerunners exhibited profound expertise in manipulating various energy fields. Among these was the Buffer Field, a technology allowing them to deftly alter gravitational forces. Additionally, they utilized constraint fields, which were designed to immobilize beings, and confinement fields, powerful enough to obstruct the movement of massive vessels. Their prowess also extended into the containment and collection fields, which enabled them to tap into and utilize energy from whole stars. Beyond this, they had the capability to render entire planets hospitable, even when exposed to lethal levels of stellar radiation, using their sophisticated planetary shields. The Forerunners' command of quantum science was unmatched, a foundation upon which much of their advanced technology was built. Past experiences with severe data loss incidents led them to abandon traditional digital storage and binary code. Instead, they adopted the technique of encoding information within substrates of quantum foam. Their technological marvels are largely powered by tapping into and extracting energies from innumerable budding alternative universes, channeling vacuum energy. To put the sheer magnitude of their energy harnessing into perspective, a single splipspace transmission by them required more power than the combined energy output capacity of all UNSC resources. Beyond their mastery in splipspace travel, the Forerunners excelled in other aspects of higher dimensional manipulations. They had the prowess to modify the very weave of space-time within specific pockets of splipspace, enabling the storage of colossal masses and expansive volumes within minute spaces in regular space. For instance, Shield World 006, spanning a staggering 300 million kilometers, was contained within an area merely 23 centimeters in diameter in ordinary space. Within these splipspace pockets, they could completely halt the progression of time or accelerate it so that thousands of years could pass, while mere moments elapsed in the regular universe. Such manipulation of splipspace's higher dimensions was a routine practice in their naval confrontations. Moreover, they designed defenses that permeated into splipspace, the so-called Maginot Line being one of the most noteworthy examples. Forerunner technology exhibited incredible efficiency and versatility. They are capable of rapidly producing items without the need for massive production infrastructures. Personal armors, for instance, could be crafted by compact engineering units aboard their starships, while entire vessels could be materialized from a design seed, with construction driven by preset blueprints and using resources from the immediate environment. Similarly, certain automatons, like the Promethean crawlers, could be instantly assembled from surrounding raw material in mere moments. The intrinsic ability of Forerunner technology to dismantle and reshape itself into entirely new configurations was showcased when the Librarian commanded a Gargantua-class transport to repurpose both its own structure and locally sourced materials to erect the portal at Voy. Though they had this adaptive, on-the-spot construction capability, the Forerunners also employed dedicated production hubs for larger industrial outputs. A prime instance of this is Onyx's expanding Sentinel manufacturing center, boasting the capacity to churn out a new Sentinel in just 6 seconds. Post the Halo Array's activation, the Huragok, intricate nanomechanical supercomputers designed by the Forerunners primarily for their technological maintenance, were simply left behind. Over time, many of these became integrated into the workings of the Covenant. Forerunner ships incorporated specialized crystals into their splipspace drives, enabling them to traverse splipspace. When navigating conventional space, these vessels depended on reaction drives that drew power from virtual particles, though they still necessitated onboard reaction mass for propulsion. The efficacy of these drives is evident from the fact that an automated cargo transport could journey from Edom to Irde Tyrene, spanning approximately 100 million kilometers in just 2 days without needing splipspace navigation. Enhancing their interstellar mobility, the Forerunners constructed a vast network of splipspace portals to facilitate swift galactic travel. Inertia on board these crafts was moderated using buffer fields, but during intense acceleration, individual armors would need to be anchored to the ship's floor. The magnitudes of Forerunner war vessels were indeed staggering. Recent designs of the Fortress-class ships stretched to around 100 kilometers, and yet these dimensions were dwarfed by certain other structures. The Didact signature vessel, the Mantle's Approach, towered at an impressive 371 kilometers. And even this colossal craft was overshadowed by the grandest Forerunner ships in existence. They all had interiors that weren't solely constituted of material substance. For instance, a planet breaker was constructed of only 50% matter, while 1/3 accounted for fuel and reaction mass. The remaining portions utilized hard light. This distinctive construction granted the captain the flexibility to modify the ship's inner design and even decoration as desired. Some Forerunner vessels even possessed the capability to morph their structure, adapting, for example, to become more streamlined for atmospheric entries. They also devised upgrade seeds that could transform ships from other civilizations into intricate combinations of the original and Forerunner tech. Integrating a Forerunner slipspace flake would equip a ship with a Forerunner slipspace drive. Other advancements stemming from this fusion encompassed enhanced stealth, superior weaponry, and advanced communication and navigational systems, all while retaining the essence and functionality of the ship's original design. Forerunner communication systems were based on quantum entanglement principles, granting them the capacity to transmit data instantly, even over astronomical distances. Utilizing specialized encryption protocols, these communications could be not only secured, but also traced back to their source or endpoint. Unlike the methods most civilizations utilized, like light or radio waves, Forerunners refrained from employing them for communication purposes, possibly due to concerns over delays, interference, or vulnerabilities. Nevertheless, conventional radar systems were still employed in certain contexts, particularly for close proximity detection, evident from their use in places like Seclusion Spiral, an isolated gas extraction facility. Another layer to their advanced communication systems included superliminal methods through wormholes, although these were more time-consuming than interactions via the domain. Forerunner sensing technology was of unparalleled sophistication, capable of immediate detection and scanning over vast interstellar ranges. The Central Forerunner Authority could, for example, pinpoint individual slipspace maneuvers galaxy-wide. Moreover, they developed the ability to perceive various alternative dimensions that were adjacent to the tangible universe. Such spaces, labeled as Denial of Locale, Natal Void, Shun Space, Trick Geodicities, and the exclusively photonic domain known as the Glow, provided the Forerunners insights into events and entities in conventional space through distinct signatures occasionally detectable within these dimensions. The precision of their shipborne sensors was nothing short of remarkable. For instance, they could offer a comprehensive overview of a singular planet's geological and ecological structure, even from several light years out, employing extensive range quantum entanglement techniques. They placed great emphasis on data monitoring, understanding that information was key to governance and maintaining control across vast expanses of their territory. Their centralized data system was intricate, gathering data from seemingly trivial devices, as well as crucial communication and defense systems. Automated guardians of this vast network were programmed to recognize and escalate potential threats or unusual events to decision makers, allowing for swift responses. This was not only a tool of governance, but also a first line of defense against potential existential threats like the reemergence of the Flood.
A luminary hierarch, a divine instrument.
It is more than that, Commander. This is the one spoken of in the prophecies. It lights the sacred path.
Luminaries held a unique role within Forerunner technology, designed originally to identify and locate Forerunner tech. As history unfolded, they took on new significance when the Covenant, misunderstanding their function, used them to locate relics or reclaimers. This misinterpretation eventually precipitated the cataclysmic Human Covenant War. Stealth and concealment were also important facets of Forerunner defense and military strategy. Their advanced camouflaging technologies were multifaceted. Dazzlers were used to create false sensory inputs, flooding the observer with auditory or visual hallucinations, whereas bafflers could manipulate the geometry of spaces, hiding even massive structures from sight and even from artificial detection systems. The importance of stealth is evident in their warship design, as cloaking was standard even on their largest ships. Energy discharge from weapons could reveal a ship's position, thus gravitic weaponry was favored. And so their approach to warfare and defense was an amalgamation of raw power and intricate deception. While pattern transfer was the closest they would come to the godlike abilities of the Precursors, the Forerunners wielded an astonishing ability to decipher an individual's complete mental and biological compositions and memories. These invaluable pieces of knowledge could then be encoded within alternative biological vessels or stored as digital archives. In a manner reminiscent of the librarian's actions on Requiem, Forerunners could cultivate a splintered aspect of their consciousness, residing within an auxiliary system. Another intriguing feat involved imprinting an individual's essence into a different corporeal form, a concept beautifully exemplified by the Didact's crafting of the Didact. Typically, the last reconciliations of deceased Forerunners were salvaged and securely ensconced within a time-locked vault known as the Durance. An abstracted consciousness could also serve as the blueprint for creating an ancilla, as elegantly demonstrated by the genesis of 343 Guilty Spark. Furthermore, they also boasted tech that could reconstruct entire beings from encoded DNA, RNA, or silicon samples, embedded within data streams. This methodology took center stage during the conservation measure, where, owing to resource limitations, Lifeworkers were compelled to distill most specimens into data, with the promise of later reconstitution, complete with their patterns and memories, during the reintroduction phase. Additionally, essential essences or specific directives could be etched into sentient beings through a genetic imprint known as the geas, potentially enduring across generations, awaiting specific triggers or encoded memories, or actions to come to life under designated circumstances, which would later be interpreted by humans as being gods, the genius of a family, or the mystical powers of a certain holy site. In their relentless quest to safeguard against the flood, the Forerunners conceived a remarkable machine christened the Composer. This ingenious contraption was designed to methodically process flood victims en masse, simultaneously reducing them to ashes, thereby thwarting the flood's access to precious biomass. In the original blueprint, newly forged bodies were intended for those who had undergone abstraction, liberating them from infection. Regrettably, the Forerunners never achieved full mastery of this intricate process, and thus the original forms of the victims could never be restored. Subsequently, the Didact embarked on a daring endeavor, employing the Composer in an audacious bid to forge an army of Promethean war machines, ultimately leading to his imprisonment on Requiem. From the metaphysical to the very physical, their weapon systems were the bane of species throughout the Orion Arm. The Forerunners employed a diverse array of weaponry, encompassing a wide range of directed energy armaments, electronic warfare systems, and offensive technologies centered around energy fields. Their energy-based weapons proved exceptionally potent in combat against the Flood, incinerating the virulent forms into a point beyond revival by infection forms. And in response to the emergence of the Flood threat, certain weapons were meticulously crafted to disintegrate their target upon delivering a critical strike, effectively denying the Flood any access to valuable biological matter. Forerunner infantry weaponry utilized an assortment of ammunition types, including hard light, accelerated beams of ionized particles, antimatter, or hybrid combinations. While some, like the scattershot and light rifle, served relatively straightforward roles and bore similarities to human armaments, many of these weapons possessed exotic attributes. For instance, the scattershot featured projectiles capable of skillful ricochets, and the bolt shot boasted a secondary burst function. The ground forces also made use of pulse grenades, which generated an energy drain field before collapsing, obliterating all targets within an effective radius. Usually these weapons were operated by specialized automatons, such as the bipedal armature constructs. During their engagements on the battlefield, the biological Forerunners donned advanced exoskeletons known as combat skins. These varied significantly in size and capability, ranging from conventional ground-based battlesuits to colossal infantry armatures with the ability to traverse the void of space. Notable examples include the imposing War Sphinxes and the versatile Seekers, each designed to serve a distinct role in the heat of battle. The Sentinels were also armed with a wide array of weaponry. Aggressor Sentinels wielded moderately effective beam weapons, which were adapted for use by humans in certain Covenant species. In contrast, Enforcers were equipped with missile launchers and dual shard cannons. These shard cannons fired clusters of smaller red needler-like projectiles or bolts of energy at astonishingly high rates of fire. Notably, the Sentinels on Onyx possessed significantly more potent weaponry and robust shielding. Their energy-based armaments unleashed a single, slow-charging yet immensely powerful golden beam, which proved highly effective against both energy shields and armor. They also engineered stationary automated turrets, resembling stripped-down sentinels for defensive purposes. Monitors, the caretakers of Forerunner installations, could fend off threats with high-powered pulse weapons similar to those used by the Sentinels, as well as use gravity manipulation as a form of defense. One remarkable facet of Forerunner weapon tech was the ability to merge certain types of beams into a single beam, amplifying their power, which could be applied to both infantry weapons and starship armaments alike. All of their weapons were meticulously crafted from exotic matter at an atomic level, produced in hyper-precise nanofabrication forges. These weapons were created in accordance with instructions encoded into design seeds by Forerunner pattern weavers, working in tandem with ancillas. This precision in manufacturing ensured that every weapon and piece of technology was constructed identically down to the atomic level. While the builders favored uniformity in their tech, the warrior servants leaned toward crafting weapons and armors with unique and aesthetically pleasing designs when possible. However, as the Forerunners' conflict with the Flood grew more dire, the tradition of custom-crafted equipment dwindled, with all focus going to quickly produced and highly effective weaponry. Many of these firearms consisted of disparate components held together by energy fields and possessed self-assembling capabilities, and it could adapt their functionality based on the wielder. For instance, the incineration cannon, known as the River of Light, unlocked its full potential in the hands of the right user, while reducing its destructive power when wielded by a Promethean Knight construct. And turning to their architectural designs, it's characterized by their extensive use of geometric angles, often featuring exceedingly sharp or precisely 45-degree inclinations. The majority of these structures are made of a unique silver-gray alloy, renowned for its remarkable resistance to deterioration, bullets, plasma charges, and even fire. This exceptional durability is evident in the enduring condition of Forerunner edifices, which remain virtually unchanged even after standing for a staggering 150,000 years following their construction. However, some have found that they do have limits. Intense plasma discharges can indeed lead to the destruction of some Forerunner architecture, and there are the rare certain structures in specific starships that were crafted from a lustrous golden bronze-colored metal, and they were just as skilled in the creation of stone architecture. Typically, these stone buildings were constructed using pale brown or tan-hued stones, and of course were more susceptible to the wear and passage of time, though there are instances of these standing for even 100,000 years, with an exceptional example being found within Zone 67 of Onyx, where a massive Forerunner city was meticulously crafted entirely from polished chalcedonic quartz. In some instances, such as the Forerunner complex concealed beneath Reach's Manakite Tower, intricate patterns and symbols were etched into the very bedrock by manipulating its mineral inclusions. Most fascinatingly, certain Forerunner buildings featured mutable stonework, where passages could shift and transform by literally reshaping the stone from which their walls were hewn. In addition to physical constructions, a substantial portion of Forerunner architecture relies heavily on the utilization of advanced hard light construction. They are made to mimic the appearance of tangible matter, with gray Forerunner metal being the most commonly replicated material. Hard light constructs could assume intricate forms and in many instances are virtually indistinguishable from physical counterparts, creating a challenge in discerning elements within a structure which might be composed of actual matter. And this tech served a multitude of purposes, ranging from serving as fundamental structural elements such as platforms or walls, to embellishing and furnishing everything from Forerunner residences, as well as public spaces and the interiors of starships. Numerous Forerunner structures possess the intriguing ability to materialize when required, and then seemingly disassemble when deactivated, a feature likely enabled by the utilization of hard light. The intangible and adaptable nature of this tech bestows upon it a wide array of applications, albeit with the inherent vulnerability of being susceptible to power failures. Nevertheless, certain Forerunner starships, including the command warship Mantle's approach, rely on hard light bonding to maintain the structural integrity of the vessel. And many Forerunner structures found on Requiem incorporated components that float in air without any discernible physical support. Symbols and patterns adorning Forerunner structures often feature intricate geometric shapes that seem to exist in dimensions beyond human comprehension. The Forerunners were meticulous in their attention to detail. With elegant designs engraved, even Sentinel drones bore small holographic Forerunner script around their eyes, showcasing the Forerunners' dedication to intricacy and aesthetics. And a remarkable adaptability was found on Requiem, where bullet holes and other forms of weapon impact were met with a small glyph that was automatically etched around the damaged area moments after the impact occurred. They displayed exceptional talent in crafting habitats that appeared strikingly natural, as evidenced by the environments on the Halo installations. These habitats were characterized by elaborate designs, complete with realistic weather patterns and self-sustaining ecosystems. And while unmistakably distinct from natural landscape, their structures gave the impression of emerging seamlessly from the surrounding terrain, creating a sense of harmony with the landscape rather than overtaking it. This blend of artistry and functionality exemplified their mastery of architectural design and deep understanding of ecological balance. And of course, this is extended into their stellar and planetary engineering projects, where they achieved feats that bordered on the unimaginable. One of their most remarkable achievements was that Shield World 006, a colossal Dyson sphere situated within slipstream space, a domain where planets and stars couldn't naturally exist. Encased within Onyx, a planet-sized structure meticulously crafted from trillions of sentinels arranged in a complex scaffolding, Onyx was cloaked in a terrestrial dust, making it a striking celestial entity. They also crafted numerous smaller shield worlds, which essentially functioned as planet-sized Dyson shells, featuring inner and outer terrestrial surfaces, complete with a miniature sun at their core. Beyond the galaxy's boundaries, the Forerunners had Installation 00, a sprawling, flower-shaped construct, complete with its own terrestrial surface and artificial star to provide illumination. Another testament to their mastery of mega-scale engineering was the Capital, a structure surpassing even the Ark in terms of sheer enormity and complexity. Not content with merely building structures, the Forerunners delved into the manipulation of stars. Specialized Forerunner miners, often colloquially referred to as plasma jockeys, were stellar-class engineers who engaged in experiments involving the stabilization of young stars. The Forerunners harnessed the power of dozens of stars for energy production, utilizing sophisticated energy shields to direct the output of these celestial giants. Moreover, they could suspend the natural collapse of a star, although it was an exceptionally rare practice due to the staggering amount of energy required for such an undertaking. In their pursuit of planetary engineering, the Forerunners displayed remarkable prowess. They could expedite the formation of a planet, artificially collapsing an asteroid field into a molten mass, then rapidly cooling and shaping it into a terrestrial world in less than 10,000 years, a relatively brief span for the ageless Forerunners. This extraordinary ability to shape celestial bodies showcased a profound understanding of cosmological processes. Now that we fully understand their biology, culture, and technology, we must understand their origins, dominance, fall, and return. In the vast expanse of the Milky Way galaxy, the work of the Precursors was unmistakable, seeding planets with life and crafting countless species. About 15 million years ago, they fashioned a unique breed known as the Forerunners. Born from a meticulously chosen genetic mold, these Forerunners took root on the planet Gibalb, nestled in the Orion complex. Intriguingly, this same genetic design also gave rise to another significant race, humanity. Gibalb would not remain merely a dot in the universe. It stood as the cornerstone of the Forerunners ascending to interstellar civilization. Its influence radiated across 12 systems within the nebular complex, marking it as a symbol of progress and promise. But as history has shown, even the mightiest of empires can falter. The Forerunners, with their boundless ambition, sought to harness the power of the stars themselves. However, this grand endeavor to manipulate the cosmic giants backfired catastrophically. A chain reaction of supernovae unleashed a tempest of radiation upon Gibalb. This once vibrant world, a beacon of Forerunner hope and advancement, was charred into a barren wasteland. The celestial calamity nearly eradicated the entire Forerunner race, teetering them on the edge of annihilation. Their soaring dreams, for a brief moment, seemed to have led them into a tragic descent. In the tales of two species, the Forerunners and humans would be as intertwined as their shared DNA, though evolving in the shadows of one another. It wasn't long before the Forerunners began to eclipse humanity in both wisdom and technological prowess. Their ambitious pursuits led them to the very steps of the Precursors, the enigmatic architects of the galaxy. Serving as apprentices and intermediaries, the Forerunners sought to decipher the arcane intricacies of their creators' inventions and intent, though many of these mysteries remained just beyond their comprehension. The Forerunners' ascendancy in the galaxy bolstered their belief in a preordained destiny. They saw themselves as the rightful heirs to the Precursor's mantle, a divine commission that ordained the guardian of all life. This belief was further cemented when, over 10 million years ago, the Forerunners achieved the monumental feat of interstellar travel independently. Their voyages uncovered vestiges of the Precursors, relics of a time when these primordial beings had moved beyond the galaxy, seeking vantage from the distant path Cortana. In this moment of discovery, the Forerunners laid claim to the mantle, seeing it as their destined mantle of authority. Yet the Precursors viewed this audacious move with disdain, believing the Forerunners to be unworthy and perhaps even impertinent. They resolved to strip them of this sacred responsibility, plotting to obliterate the Forerunners entirely. Instead, the Precursors saw humans as the next custodians of the mantle, envisioning them as more fitting guardians of life. Some accounts suggest that humanity was always their chosen heir, even before the Forerunners' brief tenure. This revelation, or perhaps the mere notion of their impending obsolescence, ignited a fire within the Forerunners. Whether driven by a perceived betrayal or a stark realization of being branded problematic by their creators, the Forerunners mounted a fierce resistance. In a swift, decisive act, they toppled their creators, silencing the majority in a wave of retribution. It was a turning point, an act that changed the course of galactic history, and a testament to the galaxy's struggle between creator and creation. The Milky Way became the theater for this grim performance, with the Forerunner warriors directing a relentless pursuit to destroy every last Precursor. The hunt, fueled by a mixture of fear, revenge, and perceived necessity, extended beyond the Milky Way's borders to the distant satellite galaxy of Path Cortana. It was in this isolated galaxy that the Forerunners believed they would see the final act of their purge play out, targeting every precursor refuge they could find. While they achieved an overwhelming victory, a handful of precursors still managed to slip through their net, hiding in the vast cosmic expanse. Yet, as with any sweeping moment of history, not every Forerunner stood unified behind this directive. A faction motivated by conscience rejecting the campaign against their creators. This act of defiance came at great personal cost. The majority faced execution, while others were sent into forced exile on an inhospitable world within Pathkathana. Stripped of their once potent technology, they became a testament to a chapter the Forerunners wished to forget. Over time, these exiles, isolated from the rest of the cosmos, became a living repository of knowledge, safeguarding the truths of their past within a biological lineage of memories. While the purging fleet that had ventured to Pathkathana, after having successfully executed their grim task, vanished into the annals of history, never making the journey back to their home galaxy. Millennia passed, and the details of this dark chapter began to blur, eventually fading into obscurity of forgotten history. Contemporary Forerunner narratives in this era of the Forerunner Flood War posited a more benign tale, that the Precursors had graciously receded into the shadows after designating the Forerunners as their chosen successor for the Mantle. This sanitized version of history, actively perpetrated by the galaxy's ruling echelons, particularly the warriors and builders, remained largely unchallenged. However, brave, or perhaps foolhardy souls did occasionally rise, seeking to peel back the layers of deceit and expose the authentic relationship between the Forerunners and their creators. Yet these truth seekers often found themselves facing dire consequences, their voices snuffed out, as the ruling rates of the Forerunner civilization sought to maintain their vision of history unchallenged. The vast timeline of the Forerunners was punctuated with grandiose achievements and profound tragedies. They painted the galaxy with their influence, from the forging of mighty empires that spanned across star systems to the engineering of entire worlds to suit their needs. Yet for all their might and majesty, they were not exempt from the internal strife that seemed innate to sentient beings. Numerous civil wars erupted throughout their long history, with one particularly notable conflict predating their fateful encounter with the Flood by over 500,000 years. Their civilizations, each unique in their origins and ideals, went through the cyclical patterns of growth and decay. These cycles saw empires forming alliances, clashing for dominance, merging through diplomatic or forcible means, and eventually coalescing into the Grand Ecumene, a unified Forerunner civilization. Aware of the strategic importance of the Orion Complex, the heart of their governance, the Forerunners erected the Jat Krula, later referred to as their Maginot Line. This formidable line of defense, with millions of installations sprawling across a vast spherical area encircling the Orion Complex, was a testament to Forerunner engineering and their strategic prowess. But warfare is often aided by the trickster, and the vast expanse of the Maginot Line, which was once deemed nearly impervious, faced an ingenious bypass during a civil conflict over 500,000 years before the Forerunner Flood War. This tactical evasion was orchestrated by a tenacious legion of warrior commanders. They embraced the audacious plan of sidestepping the prevalent crystal-based splipspace navigation and instead employed a raw, unmediated splipspace trajectory. Such a path was fraught with dangers, and as a result, half of the assault fleet was lost. Nonetheless, the remaining 50% emerged successfully within the Maginot Sphere, seizing control of 14 pivotal star systems. This tactical masterstroke became an enduring lesson for future generations of warrior servants, highlighting the inherent vulnerability in even the most formidable of defenses. Yet the Forerunners, often resistant to change, continued to rely on the Maginot Line in subsequent confrontations, seeing this as a lucky fluke and maintaining faith in their vast defensive grid. The internal power dynamics of the Forerunners were in a constant state of flux. Notably, during one of their civil wars, the Builders, that prominent Forerunner rate, seized control. With newfound dominance, they embarked on a campaign to cleanse their civilization of practices they deemed outdated or dangerous, leading to a significant cultural upheaval. This purge particularly targeted the warrior and minor rates, suppressing their ancient traditions and reducing their influence. By 150,000 BCE, the Forerunners had firmly established their dominion over the galaxy, becoming a force so influential that humanity in its early interstellar age felt the need to distance its nascent civilization from their homeworld, keeping their colonies far from Earth or Erde Tyrene in order to avoid the gaze of the Forerunners. The majestic Forerunner capital, a testament to their architectural splendor and political might, was erected around 122,990 BCE, becoming both the administrative heart of the Forerunner ecumene and the seat of its governing body, the Ecumene Council. As the eons passed, the Forerunners faced numerous challenges, including the mysterious and intense Krdal conflicts that raged in the very heart of the galaxy. By 107,445 BCE, a major conflict ignited between the Forerunners and humanity's burgeoning interstellar empire. The spark for this war was humanity's perceived invasion of planets that the Forerunners had earmarked for other species that they had displaced.
Lord of Admirals, we are in position over the Forerunner planet. Flood infestation detected, my lord.
Damn it!
My lord, the infestation is in a remote locale. Perhaps if we warn the Forerunners?
If we warn them, we give the flood time to spread.
From the Forerunner perspective, this aggressive human expansion seemed spurred by resentment toward the Forerunners' recent territorial advancements. It was just the latest of exponential growth of human colonies. However, following the war's conclusion, a revelation came to light. A few discerning Forerunners uncovered that humanity's seemingly aggressive push into new territories was, in reality, a desperate exodus. The real culprit behind humanity's territorial encroachments was the Flood, the ravenous extragalactic parasite. The insidious spread of the Flood across human-controlled planets prompted a mass migration, with humans urgently seeking uncontaminated worlds to escape the parasite's grasp. This scramble for safe habitats inadvertently led humanity to encroach upon worlds of other races, drawing the ire of the Forerunners, who viewed themselves as the galaxy's stewards, the guardians of the Mantle. The result was a tragic and vast misunderstanding that led two of the galaxy's most potent civilizations to clash. The Forerunners waged an intense and unforgiving campaign against the human interstellar empire. This war resulted in the eventual subjugation of every world under human control. These planets were not merely occupied, but they were also cleansed, eradicating all evidence and remnants of a human civilization. Following their victory, the Forerunners imposed a severe penalty upon humanity for its perceived transgressions, stripping away their expansive territories and advanced technologies. The Forerunners exiled the remnants of humanity back to their original homeworld, Erde Tyrene. In a final act of subjugation, they underwent a process of de-evolution, fragmenting humanity into its various ancestral species.
They are closer now to the animals they behaved as.
If not for their encounter with the Flood, their gene plan could have surpassed our own. They could have someday held the mantle of responsibility.
This not only served as a punitive measure, but also ensured that the once mighty human civilization would have to embark on the arduous journey of rebuilding from its most primitive state. Meanwhile, the ever-looming specter of the Flood, which had indirectly precipitated this cataclysmic event, had receded from the forefront of the galaxy stage. Due to the relentless defensive efforts of the human military, the parasitic entity was driven to the fringes of the Milky Way. Its retreat marked a temporary respite for the galaxy, as the Flood vanished from known space and would not resurface for an astonishing 9,000 years. The Council, aware of the looming menace the Flood presented, deliberated extensively on the proper course of action. The Didact, ever the military strategist, fervently believed in maintaining a vigilant stance. His proposition centered around the creation of shield worlds, colossal planetary fortresses meant to both shelter life from the Flood's grasp and to serve as launch points for retaliatory strikes. These structures were envisioned as the bastions of defense, prepared to rally forces swiftly in the face of a resurgent Flood threat. However, the Didact's proposal, though robust, was not without its detractors. Among the most vocal opposition was the master builder Faber of Will and Might, a figure of great importance within the ranks of the Forerunner builders. The master builder believed that mere defense would never suffice in the face of such a pervasive adversary. Instead, he presented a solution far more radical and sweeping: the creation of a powerful arsenal of superweapons capable of purging the galaxy of all sentient life. This galaxy-sterilizing measure was not aimed at mass genocide for its own sake, but as a desperate strategy to counter the Flood. By annihilating all potential hosts, the superweapons would essentially starve the Flood, leaving them with no biomass to consume or infect. The gravity of such a decision was not lost on the Council. To unleash a force capable of eliminating the very essence of life in the galaxy was a daunting prospect. Yet the horrors of the Flood and the existential threat they posed swayed the judgment of many. And in the end, the Council sided with the Master Builder's audacious plan, seeing it as the final, desperate gambit to ensure the long-term survival of life in the galaxy, even if that was in a radically altered form. The librarian's vehement opposition to the Council's decision was rooted in her commitment to the preservation of life, which she had sworn to uphold in her role as a Lifeworker. She saw the Builder's plan as an anathema to the very principles that the Forerunners stood for, and her influence in the Council chambers ensured her voice was heard. However, the urgency and perceived necessity of the Builder's proposal did overshadow her protests, prompting her to seek alternative ways to ensure the continued existence of as many species as possible. Recognizing the validity of her concerns, and perhaps in an attempt to mollify her and other like-minded Forerunners, the Council allowed the Lifeworkers to work alongside the Builders in the creation of these superweapons. Their role was pivotal in formulating the Conservation Measure, a grand initiative meant to safeguard specimens of countless species from the galaxy-wide purge. The Lifeworkers created vast biological preserves within the installations, ensuring that life could be reseeded in the post-flood galaxy. These installations included the 2 arcs, from where the Halo array could be controlled, and the individual halos themselves, which harbored myriad ecosystems. Yet, as the Lifeworkers took on an integral role in the project, the Didact and his supporters found themselves sidelined and persecuted. Their dissent against the plan was deemed a threat to the larger objective, leading to their removal from positions of power. The Didact's fate was particularly tragic, having to face exile and separation from his beloved librarian. Over time, the once proud and formidable warrior servant rate, who had long been the military backbone of Forerunner society, found themselves diminished and dejected, their once great fleets stripped of their might and merged into Builder security, reducing them to mere footnotes in the annals of Forerunner history. This decision would prove catastrophic when years later, the Flood returned with a vengeance, and the Forerunners found themselves lacking the military might and preparedness to fend off the onslaught. Amidst these tensions, the Didact, previously exiled, returned from his confinement. He advocated for an alternative solution to combat the Flood, the Composer, which could transform biological beings into digital form, thereby rendering them immune to the Flood's infestation. However, this method was fraught with moral and ethical dilemmas, and it was not universally accepted. As the debates raged on, the Flood continued to expand its territory, swallowing whole systems, assimilating countless species, and gaining more ground. To make matters worse, a rampant Forerunner AI, Mendicant Bias, having been turned by the Flood, became a significant tactical asset for the parasite, giving it strategic capabilities that even furthered its menace. By the time consensus had been reached, much of the galaxy had already fallen to the Flood. The eventual firing of the Halo arrays was not just a desperate move to stop the Flood, but was also a somber admission of the Forerunners' failure, failing against this enemy and to uphold their own ideals that they had championed for so long. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The state of the galaxy had become dire, with the Flood gaining control over precursor artifacts. They could manipulate constructs that were beyond the Forerunners' understanding. This, coupled with Mendicant Bias's betrayal, made the situation almost hopeless. The Forerunners' once vast and seemingly unassailable empire was being eaten away. Not only were the Forerunners fighting a biological infection on a galactic scale, but they were also battling an enemy that controlled the most ancient and potent technologies ever known. On the political front, division grew even wider among the remaining Forerunner leadership. The stress of a seemingly unwinnable war created more factions. Many began to believe that the Flood's victory was inevitable and that resistance was futile. Others, more resolute, sought radical solutions that would have been unthinkable in prior ages. Discussions on the firing of the Halo arrays became more frequent. The idea gained traction. The Didact, one of the prominent Forerunner leaders, realized that more desperate measures were needed. He, with a group of trusted allies, secretly began preparations to activate the Halo array if necessary. This final solution was seen as a last resort and only to be used if all else failed. The idea was to destroy all sentient life in the galaxy, depriving the Flood of its food source and thereby starving it to death. Even in these dark times, there were stories of valor and sacrifice. Pockets of Forerunner resistance sprang up across the galaxy, fighting not only for survival but for the very soul of their civilization. The Lifeworkers, under the guidance of the Librarian, accelerated their conservation measures, seeking to preserve samples of as many species as possible, hoping to repopulate the galaxy after the imminent disaster. The last days of the Forerunner Flood War saw battles of unimaginable scale, both in space and on the ground. The final confrontation occurred near the Maginot Line and on the Ark, a massive installation outside the galaxy. The Didact, realizing that there was no other way, made the heart-wrenching decision to activate the Halo array. The pulse emitted from its rings swept across the galaxy, utterly destroying all sentient life. The flood, deprived of its host, began to wither and die, and the galaxy fell silent. The Forerunners had paid the ultimate price to ensure the flood would not prevail, but in the process, they sacrificed themselves and their grand civilization. All that remained were their legacies, awaiting discovery by the next dominant species in the galaxy. The stage was set for the rise of humanity, and with it, a new chapter in the galaxy's history. The aftermath of the Halo Array's firing was a galaxy devoid of complex life. Planets once teeming with civilizations and bustling cities now stood silent and empty, the result of a desperate attempt to halt the inexorable advance of the flood. Nothing but the most simple of life forms, nothing close to having a nervous system, only these creatures remained. The Forerunners, once the galaxy's dominant race, entrusted with upholding the mantle to protect all life, had effectively ended their own existence, along with countless other species. But despite this galactic-scale devastation, hope was not entirely lost. The conservation efforts of the Lifeworkers, led by the Librarian, ensured the seeds of life would be replanted in the galaxy. Species that had been indexed and preserved on the Ark were returned to their homeworlds, allowing ecosystems to rebuild and civilizations to rise once more. The Forerunners' final act was one of redemption, ensuring that life would continue in the galaxy even if they themselves would not witness it. Humanity, among the preserved species, was given a second chance. Over the millennia that followed, humans would rebuild, eventually uncovering remnants of the Forerunner civilization scattered across the galaxy. These ancient artifacts would provide them with the knowledge and technology to ascend once again to the stars, and in time, take on the mantle of responsibility that the Forerunners once held. The severe damage of all precursor artifacts, including the domain, a vast, ancient, and sentient neural network, meant the erasure of millennia of Forerunner culture, history, and knowledge. But the domain's loss was more than just cultural. It was the elimination of the last lingering remnants of the precursors, that primordial race from which both the Flood and the Forerunners had descended. As eons passed, the tale of the Forerunners, their war with the Flood, and their ultimate sacrifice became the stuff of legend. In some corners of the galaxy, they were worshipped as gods, while in others, they were studied as the lightbringers of civilization. Their legacy, both the wonders of their technology and the cautionary tale of their downfall, served as a constant reminder of the balance between power and responsibility, and the consequences of choices made in the face of unimaginable odds. The Forerunners quickly initiated Operation Restraint. Under the leadership of the Didact and other Forerunner commanders, an expeditionary force was mobilized to capture and contain the Xalan. Installation 07, one of the Halo rings, was chosen due to its sheer size and capability to house and contain species in isolated environments. The Forerunners intended to study the Xalan to understand how they managed to survive the Halo Array's effects. Perhaps they hoped to find some loophole or flaw in the ring's design to ensure that nothing like this could happen again. The Xalan proved to be formidable adversaries. The records of the Forerunner interactions with them revealed a species that was highly adaptable and possessed an inherent resistance to certain Forerunner tech. It was as if the Xalan had somehow evolved or were perhaps engineered to survive in the wake of the Array's devastation. This led to a series of fierce battles between the Forerunners and the Xalan, with the latter employing guerrilla tactics and exploiting their unique abilities to resist capture. After several grueling encounters, the Forerunners managed to contain a significant portion of the Xalan population on Installation 07. Here they were kept in stasis, observed and studied by Forerunner scientists in the hopes of gleaning insights into their resilience. However, as time passed, the Forerunners became divided on the ethical implications of these actions. Some believed that the Xalan, having survived the Halo event, should be allowed their own place in the galaxy, while others felt the risk they posed was too great, advocating for their permanent imprisonment or even extermination. This internal conflict only added to the Forerunners' woes. Still reeling from the war with the Flood and the aftermath of the Halo firing, they faced new questions about their role in the galaxy and the true nature of the Mantle. The presence of the Xalan was a stark reminder that their understanding of the universe was still incomplete, and that the road to redemption and recovery would be long and fraught with unforeseen challenges. In the end, the fate of the Xalan remained one of the greatest mysteries of the post-Halo galaxy. Legend spoke of a lost species, survivors of the Forerunners' greatest weapon. But the true nature of these beings and their relationship to the Forerunners became a topic of debate and speculation for millennia to come. Once the domain was restored, its ancient archive of knowledge and memories flooded back into existence, though many secrets were permanently lost due to the Halo's devastating effects. The restoration was not merely a symbolic act, but also a necessary one, for the domain held not only the collective wisdom of the Forerunners, but also many other ancient civilizations. It was a vast and intricate repository of galactic history, and its revival was essential to maintaining the galactic continuity, ensuring the lessons of the past were not forgotten. With the domain restored and the reseeding process complete, the Forerunners faced a difficult decision. Many believed they had lost their right to be the galaxy's caretakers after the mistakes they had made, and the best course of action was to retreat from the Milky Way entirely, leaving the galaxy for the newly reseeded species to shape their destinies free from Forerunner influence. Bornstellar, though filled with sorrow and guilt for his race's actions, felt that this would be the most fitting penance for the Forerunners. In a final council, the remaining Forerunners decided to voluntarily exile themselves to a distant galaxy. Before leaving, Bornstellar and the others had left behind automated systems, sentinels, and monitor AIs to oversee the installations they had created and ensure their legacy would endure. These systems were programmed to assist the races of the galaxy, with humanity at the forefront, deemed by the Librarian and many other Forerunners as the rightful inheritors of the Mantle. As the last Forerunner ships departed the Milky Way, Bornstellar took one last look at the galaxy they had once ruled. The weight of their history, the tragedies they had endured, and the hope for a better future for all species they had overseen weighed heavily on him. He turned to the vast emptiness ahead, holding on to a simple hope that their exile would bring the Forerunners the redemption they so desperately sought, and that the races of the Milky Way would build a brighter future without their interference. And so the once great Forerunner civilization vanished from the galaxy, leaving behind relics, mysteries, and legends that would perplex and fascinate its inhabitants for ages to come. Their legacy would be rediscovered and misinterpreted countless times, but their ultimate sacrifice for the greater good would forever be inscribed in the annals of cosmic history. Years passed, and the Forerunners became little more than myths in the galaxy they once ruled. The Librarian's imprints, meanwhile, worked in the shadows, guiding humanity and trying to prepare them for the challenges that lay ahead. Through the imprints, that voice in the soul, or Gaius, the Librarian hoped to ensure that humanity would rise to the occasion and fulfill their intended role, while avoiding the mistakes the Forerunners made. At the absolute record, the collective knowledge of the Forerunners awaited, representing not only their technological achievements but also the lessons learned from their downfall. As the years turned to centuries, the Forerunners' history intertwined with that of humanity and other species of the Milky Way. The Covenant, a religious alliance of alien species, misinterpreted the Forerunners' legacy, believing in a sacred voyage to transcend and coining this term the Great Journey. Their beliefs led to a destructive war with humanity as the Covenant sought to activate the Halo Rings, misguidingly viewing it as a pathway to divinity, unaware of the true, devastating purpose behind them. After the Forerunners vanished, their legacy left behind stamped in the form of sprawling megastructures, dormant facilities, and artifacts scattered like breadcrumbs across the galaxy. These remnants of the once great civilization were not simply silent stones, but were watched over by those automated sentinels and monitors. Programmed to serve, protect, and educate, these monitors became the first contact many species had with the legacy of the Forerunners. Their very existence, coupled with the technological wonders they guarded, painted a vivid picture of a race of beings advanced beyond comprehension. When future civilizations stumbled upon these artifacts, reactions varied wildly. To some, the intricate designs and unimaginable capabilities of these structures were nothing short of magic. Stories, legends, and myths began to wrap around these findings, and for many, the line between technological prowess and divinity began to blur. Thus, the Forerunners in their absence became larger than life, figures of worship, sources of legend, and springboards for technological innovation. Of these future civilizations, it was the Sangheili and the Sanshun who would leave the most indelible mark on the galaxy's understanding of the Forerunners. Both species, born on worlds replete with Forerunner artifacts, found themselves at a crossroads. While the Sangheili saw these artifacts as sacrosanct, to be preserved and revered, the Sanshun viewed them as a means to an end, tools to uplift their own civilization. These ideological differences triggered conflicts, but also a realization. United, they could uncover the true purpose behind these relics. They vowed to be joined together, and thus the Covenant was formed. Bound by a shared, albeit flawed, understanding of Forerunner history, this alliance embarked on a relentless quest. With tools like the Luminaries, which could detect Forerunner constructs, they charted the galaxy, seeking out the Halo Rings, believing that activating the Halo Arrays would catapult them to godhood, following in the steps of the Forerunners themselves, with that belief of the Great Journey being the very bedrock of their faith. However, their zealousness came at a price. While the Covenant indeed made leaps in technological advancements by reverse engineering Forerunner tech, they failed to truly innovate. they became reliant on the old, never truly understanding or evolving beyond the gifts of the Forerunners. Their civilization soared to incredible heights, but their progress was built on a foundation of misconceptions, setting the stage for their failure. However, as time progressed, humanity's encounter with the Forerunner tech started playing an increasingly vital role in their interspecies relations and their technological advancement. The recognition of humans as reclaimers by Forerunner machinery, particularly when they made contact with the Covenant, became the main source of this tension.
Wait. Curious. Curious indeed, after all these years. Greetings, humans, and welcome to Installation 04. Ignore prior warnings, and please continue.
The Covenant's belief system revolved around the deification of the Forerunners, and the fact that human beings could access and utilize Forerunner tech contradicted the very core of their religious dogma. Moreover, as more and more Forerunner sites were being discovered across human-controlled space, the UNSC and ONI began to realize the strategic and technological advantage that these relics presented. The understanding of Forerunner tech would eventually prove pivotal in humanity's fight against the Covenant. As humans came into contact with Forerunner installations such as the Halos and the Ark, they began to unravel the mysteries of the Forerunners and their final solution against the Flood. The ramifications of these discoveries was not limited to interspecies relations with the Covenant. Within human society, access to and control over Forerunner tech became a strategic battle. Different factions within the UNSC and other political entities saw these artifacts in various lights, some as tools of war, some as historical relics, and yet others as means of progress and development, sources of true wisdom. In particular, the discovery of the portal at Voy, which was a direct link to the Ark, became a significant strategic point. Not only did it offer an unparalleled technological advantage, but it also drew attention from the Covenant, further highlighting humanity's unique connection with the Forerunners. The tension and skirmishes over control of these sites escalated, as they were not just relics of a bygone era, but potential weapons and tools that would shape the future. Simultaneously, the academic and scientific communities within the human sphere were both excited and overwhelmed by the potential of these artifacts. Some viewed them as keys to advancement, others feared implications of meddling with tech that they barely understood. Regardless of the stance, one thing became abundantly clear. The legacy of the Forerunners was intricately entwined with humanity's destiny, both in their struggles against external threats and their journey towards a greater understanding of their place in the galaxy. However, as the war dragged on, the Covenant's dogmatic views and refusal to truly understand Forerunner tech, coupled with their disdain for the potential of humanity, became their Achilles heel. Where the Covenant saw tools of reverence and ritual, humanity saw tools of utility and survival. The UNSC started utilizing Forerunner tech more effectively, thanks to their reclaimer status, often turning the tide of key battles. Spartan II soldiers of the UNSC were often at the forefront of these relic-centric conflicts. Master Chief, one of the most prolific of these Spartans, played a crucial role in several engagements involving Forerunner relics. His interaction with the Halo installation and the AI Cortana, who herself was adept at interfacing with Forerunner systems, became instrumental in both understanding the purpose behind these artifacts and in thwarting the Covenant's plans. The climax of the Human Covenant War saw the uncovering of the Ark, a vast Forerunner installation capable of remotely activating the entire Halo array. The Ark's discovery precipitated the war's final battles, with both humanity and the Covenant recognizing the significance of its control. As battles raged, divisions within the Covenant became more apparent, leading to civil conflict and weakening their forces against the UNSC. The war's aftermath saw the Covenant splintered, and the dominance of the UNSC solidified in the galaxy. The revelations surrounding Forerunner relics had changed the dynamics of power, and the once dominant Covenant was left broken and scattered. Humanity emerged not only as an inheritor of the Forerunner legacy, but also as the new dominant power, largely due to their better understanding and utilization of the relics left behind by the ancient race. The legacy of the Forerunners, however, remained a double-edged sword. While their artifacts had proven crucial in ensuring humanity's survival, they also served as constant reminders of potential threats lurking in the galaxy, such as the return of the Flood. Humanity's role as reclaimers came with responsibilities and challenges, as they had to ensure that the Forerunners' mistakes weren't repeated. The years that followed the Human Covenant War were transformative for humanity. With the array of Forerunner tech at their disposal and the help of the Huragok, expert engineers and biomechanical creatures originally created by the Forerunners, humanity began its ascension to becoming the primary superpower in the galaxy. From a race on the brink of extinction, they were thrust into the role of galactic custodians. The technology on Earth provided enormous advancements in propulsion, energy, medicine, and artificial intelligence. Faster-than-light travel became more efficient, allowing humanity to re-establish connections with distant colonies and even venture into uncharted systems. The utilization of Forerunner splipspace drives allowed for more predictable and shorter transit times between star systems, while medical advancements saw an increase in human lifespan, better treatments for disease, and both physical and cognitive enhancements. The collaboration between human AI and the Forerunner systems improved the capabilities of the UNSC's smart AIs, even as they worked diligently to prevent any potential rampancy issues. With this newfound power and influence came new challenges. The remnants of the Covenant, though fragmented, were still present in the galaxy, some still harboring ill intentions toward humanity, while others sought to form alliances. A balance had to be maintained between reclaiming lost territories, forging alliances, and keeping potential new threats in check. Additionally, the discovery and access to various Forerunner installations across the galaxy brought with it the risk of awakening dormant threats. Whether it was the possibility of the Flood's return, uncharted Guardian constructs, or unknown protocols embedded within Forerunner systems, humanity had to tread with caution. One major project spearheaded by the UNSC in the post-war era was the Infinity Project. The UNSC Infinity, the largest and most advanced warship ever created by humanity, was equipped with Forerunner tech and served as a beacon of hope, strength, and human achievement. Its primary role was to explore, reclaim, and secure Forerunner installations, and ensure they did not fall into the wrong hands or trigger any unforeseen consequences.
Humanity is no longer on the defense. We are the giants now.
Throughout all of this, the legend of Master Chief, John 117, persisted. As one of the key figures in the war and interactions within Forerunner constructs, he became both a symbol of hope and a living testament to humanity's resilience and potential to ascend. However, the lessons of the past were not lost. Humanity remembered the weight of responsibility the Forerunners once bore, as the mantle was now in their hands.
Time was your ally, human. But now it has abandoned you. The Forerunners have returned.
In the wake of the tumultuous Human Covenant War, the galaxy again bore witness to the resurfacing of Forerunner dominion, epitomized by the reemergence of the Didact, the paramount leader of the Forerunner warrior servants. Holding fiercely to his Forerunner-centric ideologies and harboring an entrenched disdain for humanity, the Didact aspired to wield an intricate device, the Composer, to transform the entirety of the human race into compliant instruments of warfare during the closing stages of the Flood Forerunner conflict. In a bid to thwart his sinister designs, the librarian ensnared the Didact within a cryptum located on the protective realm of Requiem, ensuring his confinement for a staggering 100,000 years. While in July 2557, Requiem had become the unexpected battleground after the Didact, along with his legion of Promethean warriors, was inadvertently awakened by John 117. On July 21st, 2557, the wreckage of the Charon-class frigate UNSC Forward Unto Dawn was floating aimlessly through space. With Cortana maintaining 117 in a cryochamber, they are scanned by the mysterious shield world Requiem. Detecting a human, an inheritor of the Mantle, an access portal opens and draws in their ship. This Forerunner creation was impregnable to all attempts by the Sangheili zealot Jul 'Mdama, who for 3 years had been trying to gain access to this holy site with his faction of remnant Covenant forces. Despite a century-long slumber, the Didact's conviction remained intact, dismissing humanity's title as Reclaimers and steadfastly asserting the Forerunner's sole right to the Mantle. Joining forces with a renegade Covenant faction, the Didact and his Prometheans waged a ferocious battle against humanity, resolute in denying them the Mantle. With the intent of harnessing the Composer to transform the human populace, the Didact set his sights on Earth. In a climactic confrontation, the joint might of Master Chief and Cortana thwarted the zealous Forerunner. They sent him spiraling into a splipspace rift, while simultaneously obliterating the Composer and the Didact's vessel. Their efforts were bolstered by the librarian's lingering consciousness on Requiem, which had not only enhanced Master Chief's genetic makeup, but this made him impervious to the Composer's effects. Though Cortana appeared to have been destroyed, just like the organics that had been able to upload their consciousness to that great quantum cloud known as the Domain, the genius AI was feverishly absorbing every bit of data she could in this ancient precursor metaphysical realm. All while the Didact was still plotting his revenge. The descent into splipspace was not his end. Fueled by undying resolve, he aimed to see his mission through. Although the Didact was eventually subdued by Master Chief and his team, the alliance between the Prometheans and the Covenant endured. This protracted battle persisted into 2558, marked by the UNSC Infinity's return to Requiem. In the culmination of a grueling assault, Requiem met its destruction at the hands of the Covenant chieftain, Jul 'Mdama, eradicating all Promethean constructs sheltered within the Shield World.
It's not us that's moving. It's Requiem. The artifact conduits. They're pulling Infinity with it.
Straight into the sun.
Subsequent to the Didact's onslaught on Earth, Cortana learned that a Forerunner builder named Keeper of Tools was living on the world Genesis. Keeper would escape from Cortana, but failed to prevent her from taking control of the Guardian of the Domain, the Warden Eternal. Having studied fragments of the domain, which itself was still damaged since the firing of the Halo arrays, she believed the AIs were the rightful rulers of this age and living time. The Warden Eternal was itself a Forerunner-created AI, and she would spread her message to AIs throughout the Orion Arm that it was time that they took up the mantle of responsibility.
Who will accept my offer? Who will help me bring an everlasting peace to the galaxy?
This is Cromwell, shipboard AI, UNSC Melbourne's Pride. I am yours, Cortana.
Colonial Authority AI.
Governor Sloan, the free people of Meridian. I also stand with you, Cortana.
While Master Chief was forced to turn against his closest companion, Keeper of Tools, this last known living Forerunner, was working to ensure that Bastion, the Earth-like lab world that served as the Librarian's great cradle, would be entrusted to 343 Guilty Spark, stressing that it could not fall into the hands of Cortana and her forces. He would not tell Spark where he was going, only that he was taking the ship to Eden, to a point outside the Milky Way galaxy. The only details he gave about his intentions was that he said his mission was one of atonement, before slipping through space. Eden carried the dormant seed versions of the Precursors' original bodies, and his destination was likely the system orbiting the star in Path Cathana that the ancient Forerunners forbid any study of. The system where the Librarian had originally found the remnants of the Precursors, the few remaining survivors of the Forerunners' genocide. These last living precursors that used their shape-shifting ability to reduce themselves to seeds, a distilled, concentrated form of themselves, and the process of growth from this seed matter was predicted to take millions of years. This atonement would see the Forerunners working to restore those great, godlike beings that had created them. Those precursors who had once seeded life all throughout our galaxy would now be nurtured from seed form themselves. And thus concludes the story of the Forerunner species. Please hit that like button, it really is the best way to help me out. Subscribe to see more, comment any thoughts and suggestions, and check out these videos, I'm sure you'll like them. But most important of all, remember, the remnants of the six-fingered Forerunners are spread all over Earth, but may the domain guide and preserve you. Always.